Hi. I wanted to talk to you again about the cost of living issues in Seattle. And I wanted to discuss how it got that far, or how it got that way. Bear with me a second, I've got an itch. So, I moved to Seattle quite by accident, which I don't live there now, but I had moved to Seattle quite by accident. I had met a girl after me and my son's mother broke up, and she decided that it was better that I didn't stick around to help raise him. I don't bear any ill will toward her. She did what she thought was right for our son, and I'm eternally grateful that she tried. But after that happened, I moved around for a little bit, and I stopped into Topeka, Kansas, and I bumped into a girl. I was about 24 at that time, 23, 24. She had just turned 18. And to be honest with you, I had thought she was like the hottest thing going. I was a young hotshot artist, photographer, and I wanted to use her for some of my work. Needless to say, she was living in Topeka, Kansas. She had gotten homesick, and she wanted to go back to Everett, Washington, which is outside of Seattle. Y'all know that if you're from Seattle. So I took her to Seattle, to Everett, Washington, actually. Things didn't work out between us, and I moved to Seattle, and I fell in love with Seattle. So after that, I decided that I was going to make a home for myself there. I was still kind of young and kind of stupid. I didn't appreciate the things that I had. But I knew enough about Seattle to know that that's where I wanted to live. At that time, you could actually live there. I mean, you could actually have a life in Seattle. Now, the cost of living is so expensive, and the rent is so high that all you can basically do is pay your bills, pay your rent, go to work, and come home. If you do have a life, you're sacrificing something to have that life. If you're on disability or you're on low income, you have no life whatsoever. I live in Minneapolis right now, and that was because of something really stupid too. I had moved from Seattle to Minneapolis because I met a woman online. And it's sort of like the Tom Hanks Sleepless in Seattle scenario. I got stupid and I stayed here. Now, from 1996 to 2018, Seattle may not be fixable. Because when we had the option of fixing Seattle, nobody wanted to fix Seattle. They wanted to just talk about it. Oh yeah, well, you know, for the people that are making good money working at Microsoft, Amazon, that are working at Facebook, people that are working at Boeing and places that are grandfathered in and grandmothered in, people that had places way back before the housing crisis happened, people that own their own homes and still live there, people that have family that's there, you're fine. Basically, because you're able to do things. You don't live in Seattle itself. Now, I planned on wanting to move back to Seattle, but I can't. And I'm going to say it's everybody's fault. And the reason I'm going to say it's everybody's fault is because just because it didn't happen because of you, we are now a part of Seattle. I may not physically live in Seattle, but I take responsibility for the shit that's happening there. My heart is in Seattle. Everything, if you know me, I've got a giant poster or a great big huge giant portrait that I had framed of Seattle. In this frame, my cell phone, the home screen is a portrait of Seattle. I have a portrait of Seattle on my Facebook page. Everything in my life revolves around Seattle. I'm talking about Seattle. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I just can't move back to Seattle. Now, back to the cost of living issues. When I say it's our problem, it is our problem because we are there. You, if you're in Seattle, you're physically there. Me, I constantly think and dream and live Seattle from where I'm at. I view Seattle from afar. Now, how are we going to fix it? Are we just going to give lip service and keep talking? I'm sure the mayor and I'm sure the city council, I'm sure the mayor, Jenny Durkan, I'm sure she means well. I'm sure that the city council means well. They say we're going to figure out how to help the homeless. I'm not here to help the homeless. I'm here to help Seattle. And I'm here to stop the homeless problem. And in doing so, the homeless will get help. Now, I've mentioned my 3-piece plan for fixing the homeless problem. And I've also figured out a 2-piece plan to help curb the high rise of rent. It's a never-ending story. It's like the guy that wants a raise. The person sees that the cost of the product has went up, so they think the company is making more money, so they ask for a raise. Then, to offset the raise, they have to raise the cost of the product again. So the employee sees that the cost of that hamburger has went up $1. So they assume that they're making more money, therefore they should have another raise. So the company gives them another 50-cent raise or 75-cent raise or $1 raise or whatever the raise is going to be. The company gives them that raise, but then they have to raise the cost of the product again because they're not going to take a salary cut. Now, when people see the cost of rent going up and the local companies see the cost of the rent going up, they assume that people have more money now, therefore they can afford to pay for more of the product. They can pay for the product and pay more for it, which is not true. If the rent is $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom, the grocery stores should not capitalize on that, because not only are you having to pay $2,000 a month for the rent, you have to now pay $10 for a pound of hamburger because they decided to jack up the price of the beef. Now the stores, they get the beef for so much a pound in bulk. Then they have to figure out how much they're going to charge for the beef once they put it on the shelf. Now, I think personally, hamburgers should be $1 a pound. I think there should be cattle ranches or cattlemen that would be willing to allow their beef to go for $1 a pound. Steak is a little different. You can charge a little more for that because it's a different cut of meat. But hamburgers should be $1 a pound. They could take a little bit of a cut on their overall price of each head of cattle on each of the beef after it's broken down from a full cow to the pieces that go to the store. Steaks and ribs, they're a little more spendy. So you pay a little bit more for those. I think 7, maybe 6 for premium, maybe $9, $10 a pound. Choice, $7, $8 a pound. I say select, which is your basic dog-eared piece of meat, I think it should be maybe $6 to $7 a pound. Now, that's not the way it's going to happen, because when the stores get it, the stores don't sell it for just measly amounts. They figure you're paying $2,000 a month for that one-bedroom apartment. When you shop at the grocery stores, you can afford to pay $10 for a pound of hamburger. And so, you pay for it, or you just do without. So the stores assume that you're paying for it, therefore you must be able to afford it because you're buying it. Just because you can pay for something, that doesn't necessarily mean you can afford it. Now, I talk to these guys on YouTube. They do these watch channels where they talk about these X-Lax watches, you know, these really big $20,000 watches and what have you. I think most of them are lying. I think they're not paying 20 grand for a watch. I think their watches are replicas, or they're borrowing it from a company. They say they work for a watch seller and they borrow the watch for their blog or whatever, their watch video, review video. But just because a person has $10,000 in their pocket to pay for a watch, that doesn't mean that they have enough money they can afford it. Now, if you reach in your wallet, or if you reach in your pocket to pull out your keys and you drop $10,000 on the ground, and you're not going to miss that $10,000 at all, then yeah, you can afford to buy stuff. But if you have to decide, oh, I lost $10,000, how am I going to make that up? Then you can't afford it. Now, just because your rent's $2 grand, your utilities are probably close to like $150, maybe $200 a month. Your cable and your internet and your phone's going to run you about maybe $200 and something a month. And then you maybe got a cell phone that's going to cost you like maybe $50, $60 a month, unless you get one of them iPhones that are ridiculously expensive and you're not going to use every single thing on it anyway. You just bought the iPhone because it sounded nice and it sounds expensive. It's an iPhone. Oh, I have a ZTE X Max Grand Plus 2. It's the exact same size as a Samsung Galaxy 6 Plus or 7 or whatever. It's the exact same size. I paid about $129 for that phone. Samsung Galaxy costs almost $1 grand, brand new. I have a camera on my phone that is about a 14 megapixel. The Samsung Galaxy is a 16. It has video capability, which I don't really use. I use my Nikon digital camera, which I'm using right now to do my videos with. So yeah, the cost of living is our fault, Seattle. It is our fault because we just bend over and pay for it out of the convenience. And what really is so important that we can't take time out of our lives to take care of the city that we love. At least I love Seattle. I don't know about the rest of you out there in Seattle land, but I love Seattle. I love every single thing about Seattle. I love the way it looks. I love the way it smells. I love the streets. The Pike Place Market. I love all the little in-and-out mom-and-pop restaurants. I love the people. I love the tourists. I love everything. I love the rain. I love when it mists and it sprays on your face. I love being on the ferry boats and riding over to an island and shopping and coming back and having fish and chips on the wharf. I love all of that. But I can't be there. So I have to love you from afar, Seattle. So, my question to all of you in Seattle land, how are we going to get the city back on its feet? For one, I planned on running for mayor in 2021. If the mayor and the city council does not step up to the plate and get something substantially started, if you guys were to get something really good started and you were really trying to fix the homeless problem, I would be right there to help you. And I wouldn't run for mayor in 2021. But if it goes into like 2019 to 2020, and I can see that you guys aren't doing nothing but just giving lip service, I plan on running for the mayor of Seattle. I'm going to go for the throat, and I'm going to tackle the rent, I'm going to tackle the cost of living, and I'm going to tackle the homeless problem, in not so much in that order, but those are the three things, the three major things that I'm going to do when I become mayor of Seattle, if I can become mayor of Seattle. If not, I'm going to ride the mayor of Seattle and the city council. I'm going to ride your guys' ass until it hurts. Every time I get a chance, I'm going to poke you where it hurts. Why ain't this happening? Why aren't you doing this? I'm going to keep track of the weekly things, and once a week, I'm going to do the State of the Union address. The City of Seattle Union address, where I talk about the issues that's went on at city council meetings. I'm going to keep track of what the mayor says, and I'm going to talk about it. And I'm serious about this now. I'm not just blowing smoke up old granny's skirt. I'm really serious about this. Seattle is too beautiful a city to be this much in the mud. I've said it in the past in some of my videos. When I fix my homeless problem, a workable shelter with counselors inside. If you're homeless because you lost your apartment, you can get help finding a new apartment. If you lost your job, you can get help finding a new job. If you're homeless because of a drug and alcohol problem and you seriously want to get help with that, we will get you into a treatment facility. If you're just blowing smoke up old granny's skirt and you're not interested in getting drug and alcohol treatment, but you're tired of being on the street and you think being in that shelter is going to work for you, you'll get busted. Eventually you'll get found out, because the counselors are not stupid. They're not going to be just some Ivy League kid that just came out of school that's not had any street service. I've been homeless. I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what causes homelessness, and I know what causes people to want to stay homeless. And I tell you, I ain't going to let it fly. I'm not going to be cruel, but we got to do something about Seattle. Now, for those that want to be homeless, that don't want to get into drug and alcohol, they like living on the street, or you've been on the street so long that you cannot handle not being on the street. At first I was thinking we'd get you on a Greyhound and send you out of the city. But if you'll come forward and be honest and say, I like being homeless, I can't handle being inside, I have to live outside. They're doing tiny houses, little bitty houses, where you can get a lock for your door, you can have a key, you can store your stuff there, and people will check in on you from time to time. If you're going to drink or do drugs, you have to keep your place together. If you're doing the drugs, that's illegal for the most part, unless unless you're smoking marijuana. I'm not a big proponent of marijuana. I don't believe that drugs are good, any kind of drugs whatsoever. I don't even like to take an aspirin. I like to charge right through the pain. That's personal now, but because it's legal for Seattle to smoke marijuana, I want us as a whole to be responsible. to use good judgment. Yeah, okay, you want to get high. Don't be stupid about it. Don't be one of them stoners that just allows everything else around you to lapse. Be a workable stoner. Like those workable drunks that are drunk, but they can still do their job and function. A functioning drug addict. Yeah, I'm against the drugs. I really am. But if it's legal and the citizens voted on it, I will abide by that until the citizens decide to vote against it. Now, my second choice for the homelessness is there's a workable shelter. I've talked to Boeing, and it's possible that Boeing has a couple of buildings that are big enough that we can house the homeless, so they're off the street and they're safe. You can do your laundry, you can go out looking for work, your counselors would help you apply for jobs, and you could go out and apply for those jobs, and you could have a way for the employers to call you back. You would get help from the employers that would be willing to hire you. We could also worry about the homeless problem as far as like the housing. When you're homeless, you got to get housing. You got to have rental history. If you don't have it, you're basically fucked. Pardon my language. I do curse from time to time. I'm human, and I use it to pull in a point. I don't just curse for the sake of cursing. I will only curse if it's driving home a point, and very seldom will I ever do it unless it's very selective. So, as far as that goes, I would like to fix the rental problem, because I heard that the state of Washington passed a law that says that the city cannot force property owners and people that own apartments and realtors and stuff. I heard that they can't force a rent cap. If, say, you own a building and you have somebody come in and buy that building, but technically you still kind of own the building, but you don't want anybody to know. You just got tired of these low-income bums, as you would put that, living there. So you have somebody come in and buy up the buildings, and then you have them jack up the price of the rent so you can force the low income out, so you can get people that are willing to pay $3 and $4 grand a month for an apartment. That's what I want to accomplish if I become mayor. In my first year as mayor, I want to get the ball rolling. I want to be running as I'm moving, which means that as soon as I hop out of that helicopter and I hit the ground, I'm hitting the ground running. I'm not going to take time to figure out what I'm going to do and get my clients together or get my staff together. I'm going to try to have a plan in motion for the staff that was there before. And if you're a good staff member working with the mayor, and if you're willing to do what it takes to make Seattle a better place, then I'll keep you on. I will. Well, I'm going to let you go. This video is getting kind of long. I am very concerned about you, Seattle. I really am. I am very concerned. But I love you, Seattle, because you look marvelous. You do look marvelous.